Man, it seems like every year, late winter, early spring, I get this itch for a new car. In this video, I'm going to talk through my therapy on identifying, research, and deciding on what I'm going to get next. Hey, I'm Andy, a high-performance car enthusiast with a passion for well-engineered automobiles. I love to drive mountain roads with like-minded enthusiasts, along with sharing driving tips and techniques in my Porsche GT3 RS and BMW M2 CS. Feel free to share your process or the steps you go through in identifying, researching, and buying a new or used car. I'd like to hear from you. Let me break my therapy down into 5 steps. The first step is going to be determining my budget. The second step will be what are my requirements. The third step is researching the new or used car that I'm thinking about buying. The fourth step is searching, then doing a car search for that new or used ride. And then the last step is making a decision, deciding. I am not going to go into financing, lease versus buy, cash versus financing. I'm not going to get into that here. Maybe we'll do that in another video. So the first step is determine the budget, right? So I don't have unlimited funds, and so I need to come up with, hey, what's a number that you can spend on a car? In fact, there's data out there that suggests most people, don't ask me what most is, I think it's most like high, like 75, 80% of people will purchase a car towards the higher end of their affordability. So, what they can afford. And yes, that is me. The good news on deciding to buy a used car is that that car has probably already taken its initial depreciation hit. So in the first 1 to 2 years of a car's life, that's probably when it takes its biggest hit. Even Porsches take a hit in those first 2 years. Now today's market we know it's totally out of whack, right? It's bonkers. New cars are selling over MSRP, used cars are selling for MSRP. I mean, it's crazy right now, but typically, right, we all know that a used car is going to end up taking that initial depreciation hit. So you can afford to get maybe a little bit more car if you're willing to buy something that's maybe a few years old. Now there's exceptions to that with collectors' cars, right? Certain cars are becoming hot, and even though they may be several years old, they're starting to fall in the collector's hands, and that's driving the price up. So just understand that doesn't apply across the board. But I believe the majority you're going to find you'll save a few dollars by going used. So now that I know my budget, okay, this is how much I plan to spend, now we go on to the next step. And step number 2 is identifying your requirements. So identifying requirements, this is the fun part for me, right? It's like, and here, before I get into the nitty gritty, I'm going to start out with what are the cars out there that excite me? Right? I try to narrow it down, right? There's hundreds of cars that are out there. What are the cars that excite me? So for here, I'm actually breaking it down to 4 cars. So the cars I'm searching are the Ferrari 458 Italia, primarily 2014, 2015, the Ferrari 488 GTB. Third car is a Mclaren 720S Spider, which is probably around a 2020 model. And then the fourth car is also a McLaren. It's the McLaren 600 LT Spider. They made that car 1 year, 2020. McLaren didn't announce how many they produced, probably somewhere around 350 in the US. So there's not a lot of those, so those could be a premium. So here is also where I'll start determining what are the things that I want. I'll say the must-haves, and then there's nice-to-haves. And whenever you're buying a used car, since you're not buying new and you can't spec it the way you want it, you have to make some compromises. So what are the things you won't compromise on? For me, I typically look for maybe a certain kind of seat, transmission. Do I want a coupe, a convertible? Do I want iron brakes? Do I want ceramic brakes? Like, do I need the high-end radio? Do I need satellite? Do I need Apple CarPlay? What are the things that you must have, and what are the things that are kind of nice to have? So make yourself up a list of what you're looking for. So then you're armed with the information you need to move on to the next step, and the next step is research. Okay, so research, and this is the longest step of the process. And I do a ton of homework here. Some people may say I'm a little obsessive about it, but it's also the step that I enjoy the most. I love going deep, and I love learning as much as I can. And this part of the process is what I call the chase. And it's the excitement of doing all this research, learning learning all I can about the car that I'm interested in. And actually purchasing the car for me is a little anticlimactic, because it's the chase that I really enjoy the most. I mean, I could just do this car searching all day long. I would love it. So what does all this research entail for you? So let me kind of break it down into 3 subsets here. So the first one is a Google search. So in this case, 458 Italia, let's say, is I'm going to plug in 458 Italia in Google search. The second step of that process is going to be read and watch. So the reading, I am going to look for car magazines, Car and Driver, Road and Track, Evo, Auto UK, or Auto Car, whatever they are. I'm going to read a lot of articles, review articles on the car. And in those articles, I'm going to look for a theme. Is there a theme? You know, this is good, this is bad, this is quirky, this is fine. What's a theme? And then I'm going to look for, you know, again, like, what are some annoyances? On the YouTube side, I'm going to also go to YouTube search. And I'm going to type in Ferrari 458. You're going to see a lot of reviews from the big YouTubers. And oh, by the way, if you didn't catch my series where I was reviewing the YouTube reviewers, we'll put a link in the description below. Go check that out. Maybe there's some there that you follow like I do. I'll watch the big YouTubers, but I'm also going to watch the little guys, you know, kind of like me. I'm going to watch the little guys that are out there, because sometimes they say things are not as unbiased. They're more unbiased, or not as biased, or they may bring up things that the other guys just overlook, or maybe they don't feel is really important, but maybe to you or I, those little details are important. So I'm probably watching a dozen videos for each car. I want to know, how does it handle? What's the performance? I'm not too worried about 0 to 60 and 0 to 100 and a quarter mile. I'm not drag racing. So that stuff isn't as important to me as the handling. What do the brakes feel like? Is that pedal spongy? Is it too firm? What's the pedal like? What's the throttle like? Is it real touchy? Is it very progressive? What's the steering like? The suspension, the handling, you know, is it super rough? Is it somewhat compliant based on the different modes that are maybe selected in the suspension? Those are the things I want to learn, as well as, you know, what are some of the quirks? Like, maybe there's something about it within some of those quirks that might just be a showstopper for you, where you're just like, I couldn't deal with a car that was like that. And that could be enough for you to say, nope, cross the 458 Italia off the list. I'm not interested. The other part you can pick up in these reviews and in the magazines is understand, you know, maintenance costs, reliability, things along that line too. Again, I'm looking for themes. I'm looking to get myself filled with as much information as I can. And then the third piece in this process is going out to the manufacturer's website. So if it's a new car, obviously you go out to the manufacturer's website, you can get certain information. But even on older cars, there sometimes is some legacy information from the manufacturers that they leave out on the web that you can still access and get a hold of it. So for me, like, you're like, well, what the hell do you want to get, Andy? What's the information you're looking for? Sometimes I look for certain specs. Some of the reviewers will put those in there. And for me, it's like dimensions, weight, fuel tank, because I do a lot of driving in the mountains. I want to know, like, you know, obviously fuel economy is not a concern, but I kind of want to have a general idea with the size of the tank, so I know if I need to stop when I'm in the mountains, like how often am I going to have to stop for gas. But probably the more important information I want to know is I want to know the dimensions. I want to know width, length, height. I want to know when the doors are open, how wide it is, because I have a lift in my garage. So this car needs to be able to fit in the lift in between the uprights, and it needs to fit on the ramps, and it needs to go up and not hit the ceiling, you know, all those kinds of things. So dimensions are important to me, and I can usually get that there. And then sometimes in this step with the OEM, or sometimes in this research step, I will actually go out and look for owner's manuals. And yes, I am one of those people that reads the owner's manual. I know you people are like laughing or giggling at me right now, but sometimes I'll go out ahead of time and I'll get the owner's manual and I'll just start reading through that. Because again, you'll learn some quirks and features, or oh my God, it does that. Or you'll find some little Easter eggs. Is that what they're called? Easter eggs? You'll find some of those where you're like, oh crap, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. So the next step in the process, this is the fourth step, is the searching. Okay, obvious step, right? I mean, you know, you got to search for the cars, you know, search for what you want. Notice I didn't say what you need. I said what you want, because ultimately that's what it's what you want, you know, unless somebody's telling you, no, you can't, you have to get what you need. But in this case here, you know, it's kind of what you want. So I'm going to search like Auto Trader, cars.com, Car Gurus. I may go out to DuPont Registry, depending on what it is, what I'm looking for. And then I'll go out to the OEM sites. So a couple things, two I can speak to. One is Porsche. So Porsche, you have the ability to go out and do a search, and if you put in a zip code, it'll pull up all the dealers within a certain radius of that zip code. Now you may have to plug in a couple zip codes across the country to see all the dealers, but as opposed to going to 100 and whatever, there's 192 dealers in the US, you can do that probably through 4 or 5 big searches. The other one that I think is really nice is the way Ferrari's is set up. Ferrari has just one site that you go to, you plug in 458 Italia, 488 GTB, and it'll pull up from every dealer in the country. It'll pull up the car inventory. So don't, you know, rule out looking at the OEM sites. One of the other things you'll want to do if you can is to take that car out for a test drive. If you're able to, right? Sometimes if you're buying cars from across the country, unless you're willing to jump on a plane and go fly out there, you might not be able to. And I've bought cars, like most of the GT cars, you can't go out and test drive a GT3 RS, a new one, right? You're just going to buy it and I hope I like it. If it's a private seller and that's nearby, or even if it's far, you know, again, does it make sense to probably drive the car? It probably does make sense to drive the car, especially if you've never driven it before. Are you going to like that? Or maybe you have a friend or you know someone that has the car that either would let you drive their car or would at least tell you, give you their opinion about the car. So that's a piece that you'll want to do if you can, is test drive the car. Now here I'm just going to make a quick note about buying from a dealer or buying privately. That's a very personal preference, and there's a lot of factors that you may consider when doing either, okay? Real quick, I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail. Real quick, privately, you might be able to get the car cheaper, right? Because they don't have all the overhead like a dealer has. So privately, you might be able to get the car cheaper. Privately, you'll talk to the owner. Now, if it was a one-owner car, that would be great, because now you can talk to that owner. They can tell you everything they did, services. You can probably get the service information from them, you know, the receipts or whatever, the work they had done. You can actually learn a lot from a private individual. Now, if they're the 4th or 5th owner, well, you're, you know, not that the dealer would be any different, but you're just not going to be able to get much information there. And then you can find out what warranty is left, right? They're not going to be able to provide you an extended warranty from a private seller. Chances are they're not going to want to buy it unless they charge you for it. And then with a private seller, you'll have to arrange for your own financing. Some of you, that might be perfectly fine. I go to my credit union, I go to my bank, wherever. I'll go get my own financing. Some of you, the dealer side may be a little bit more convenient because maybe I get the financing through them. Sure, I know they may add another quarter, half a point to it, but I get my financing through them. Also, I might be able to get a certified pre-owned. I might be able to get an extended warranty. So maybe that leads you to go through a dealer. Now for me, a couple things that I keep in mind, I'm here in Kentucky, and in Kentucky, we pay sales tax on the difference between the new car that I'm buying and say the car I'm trading in. So at a dealer, if I'm buying a car for say 100,000 and the car I'm trading in is 50, I'm going to pay tax on the difference, which is 50,000. Our state tax is 6%. So 6% of 50,000 is, $3,000. I think I did that right. Where if I buy from a private seller, I believe this is true here. If I buy from a private seller, I'm going to have to pay tax on the full 100,000. So in that case, that's 6,000. So that's 6 versus 3. Now, if I can save that extra 3,000 by buying privately, well, maybe that's worth it, but maybe not. The convenience. Now, if I can save 20,000, well, yeah, I'll probably pay the $6,000 if I can save 20,000. So you have to figure that out. That was probably more detail than you were looking for. Also in this search process, I'm going to look at the Carfax and the auto check. Now, before you start beating up Carfax and auto check, I know they're not perfect, guys, all right? I know that. But it will give you information. It'll provide you with information on, did it get serviced regularly? How often was it going into the shop and maintaining the car? You'll also see how many times this car may have traded hands, right? They'll say 1 owner, 2 owner, 5 owners. The one note on owners is sometimes these cars move between dealers. For example, they may go to auction. So one dealer has it, he's not moving, it goes to auction, another dealer picks it up, and they'll show up as owners, like say on a Carfax report. But if you look at the mileage, you'll notice at times, like those cars, they don't go anywhere. They may have gone 100 miles in a few months or whatever. So that's something to just look at when you see multiple owners. Now, if I see multiple owners, probably around, if it gets to 4 or more, I'm probably not as interested in the cars. But hey, that's something that I would suggest you take a look at. The other thing is in this phase, in this search phase, whether it's private seller, but I'm going to mainly talk dealer here, is I'm going to try to get as much details as I can on the car. Like, are the services up to date? When is the next service due? What are the conditions of the tires? For me, I want to know if the car has any PPF, paint protection film. I want to know if the car has any PPF on it, because where I drive, it's nice to have PPF on the car. And if it doesn't, then I know maybe that's something I want to do. So there's going to be an added expense there to put PPF on the car. Do they have the original window sticker? Now, some of you may go, what the hell do you care about the window sticker? Well, I like to know how much that car was originally. And for me, more specifically, is I want to know what the options, everything that's on that car, and what it cost. And it gives me an idea, well, here's what the MSRP was, the original MSRP. Here's what it's selling for now as compared to other cars, similar cars that are selling right now. How does that fit compared to the MSRP? And then, even if it's at a dealer, if that car was serviced at that dealer, they have the service records or the repair order, whatever they're called. And you can ask them for those. Say, hey, I want to get copies of the repair orders, of the service records. So then you can see the details of what was done to that car. When were the oil changes done? When were the tires done? Were the tires rotated on cars where you can do that? Just what was done to the car. So that's another piece that I'll go through as in this kind of search phase. Even before I decide now, I haven't decided yet. Right? These 4 cars I talked about, get that information. I'm collecting that information. Well, I'm probably not collecting that on 4 cars, okay? I've probably narrowed it down to 2 by that time. I might not be I'll do all the research on the 4, but when I get down to the searching, I'm probably doing it for just a couple of cars. Whether you decide to go buy private or you decide to buy through the dealer, I strongly recommend you get a pre-purchase inspection done. And yes, even from the dealer. Because if the car is CPO certified, I feel pretty good that car has been vetted out. And I'll use Porsche as an example. I know others have a similar thing. But Porsche, I mean, that car goes through like, I don't know, 100 or more things. And I mean, it costs Porsche like $3,000. I think the dealer's cost is almost $3,000 to put that car, because it gets everything up to a spec. All the tires have to be at a certain spec. The brakes have to be at a certain spec. Like everything has to be at these levels before they can CPO it. And if that was done, I'll feel pretty good about it. If there was no CPO done, then a PPI, pre-purchase inspection, would probably be something smart to do. On a private seller, I 100% would do a pre-purchase inspection. There's different companies out there that do them, but do pick a company that does a thorough review. Don't do someone that, oh yeah, I started, I look at the lights, do they work? I take a bunch of pictures and show them to you. Like, you're looking for something a little bit more detailed than that. You could probably go out and search, PPI and see what vendors come up, but I would suggest do the PPI, especially if it's a non-CPO. And especially if it's coming from a private seller. I feel at this point, I am armed with all the information I need to make an educated decision. So he says. How do I say this? But what ends up happening is, do you end up purchasing which seems to make this is the most logical choice, or do you end up purchasing what's grabbing at your heart? Now we've got there and we decided on a car. So out of those cars that I listed earlier, I've made a decision, and I'm not going to tell you today. You're going to have to watch another video in a couple of weeks where I'll do that. So, hey everybody, thanks for watching. Please give this video a like. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Tell your friends, share the video. It really helps my channel grow. I'm really trying to grow the channel so I can bring you more content and hopefully more car reviews. So hey, until the next time, stay healthy and stay safe.